In this Be Digitally Different video, I'll reveal Steve Jobs' second greatest achievement. Since you'll never guess what it is, we better get started. First off, virtually everyone agrees his most significant achievement was the iPhone, because of how it radically transformed society. Whether that's good or bad is up to you, but its effect was indisputably profound, so that was number one. For his number two achievement, we can eliminate some usual suspects right off the bat. It wasn't the iPad, which was an oversized iPhone for content consumption. It wasn't the iPod, which, though putting 1,000 songs in your pocket, did not profoundly change society. And it wasn't the first Macintosh from 1984. After all, the Mac wasn't Apple's first GUI-based computer. No, Steve's monumental number two achievement lies still further in the distant past, 1980 to be exact, and it wasn't even a product. Instead, it was a patentable concept, one that affected society almost as profoundly as the iPhone, and is still with us today. So let's get to it. In 1977, the first personal computers, the Apple II, Commodore's PET, and Tandy Radio Shack's TRS-80, began creating a stir in hobbyist circles. The operating systems of these first PCs relied exclusively on keyboard input. There were no mice. And display text was character-based, not bitmapped. Some up-and-coming software applications eventually started transforming those computers from mere hobbyist toys into actually useful productivity tools. Among these applications were the extremely popular word processing program WordStar and the wildly successful VisiCalc spreadsheet, as well as software for tasks such as accounting, programming, and database management. Since these PCs were exclusively keyboard-based, that meant users invoked software functions by pressing keys, typically weird combinations of keys. But those were pioneering days, and the operating systems themselves didn't define any user interface standards, so each software developer had to hatch their own arbitrary user interfaces. For instance, to save a file in VisiCalc, you would press the / key and then press the S key twice. In WordStar, you would press the Control key and the K key together and then release both keys and then press the S key. Every application had its own individual key press schemes. No cross-application user interface standards existed. Huge user manuals documented each of the software's numerous specific functions and their associated combo key presses. WordStar had 164 commands. WordPerfect's manual was 1,000 pages. Users couldn't be expected to remember each application's many key presses, so an entire niche industry emerged to provide application-specific overlay cards that users could place on top of their keyboards, listing the major required key presses. First, you would place your VisiCalc overlay on the keyboard and do some spreadsheet calculations. To write a report, you would then replace the VisiCalc overlay with your WordStar overlay. You'd also have to keep a permanent stack of thick and heavy user's manuals on your desk and constantly flip through them while using your programs. To free up some desk space, one company provided spiral-bound, single-page mini manuals that you could mount at an eye-level location. It was all too much to keep track of, and resultingly, even longtime users were unable to develop much key press muscle memory. And it scared normal people away from the idea of buying and using a computer. That, in turn, restricted market growth. At that time, Xerox had just acquired a 10% stake in Apple and invited Jobs and his team to see what Xerox was up to at its Palo Alto Research Center. There, in December 1979, Steve saw an assortment of innovative bitmapped user interface elements, such as pop-up menus, window boxes, and icons, as well as interaction via a mouse. But Xerox had no standardized user interface, just a collection of the graphics elements. Nevertheless, Steve instantly realized this was the future of user interfaces. He immediately put his team to work, not merely to copy what Xerox's research facility had developed, but also to create what Xerox hadn't even thought about: a cohesive, standardized user interface across all applications. User interface definition and support would move from the application level up to the operating system level. Under Steve's leadership, his team set up an intensive user interface research and development effort, much of it supervised by psychologists with videotaping facilities. They tested how both normal people and experienced users reacted to various UI approaches. This was pioneering and methodic fundamental research, utilizing hundreds of hours of videotaped observation. Their goal was to create a computer anybody could learn to use in less than half an hour. What they came up with by September 1980 under Steve's direction was an elegant and highly effective solution to the key press chaos of then current applications. An operating system API would now define a standardized, consistent user interface across all applications. User interaction would be intuitive, direct, and mouse-driven. Rigorous iterative user testing yielded the optimal approach, which employed two concepts. Number one, an always visible horizontal menu bar at the top of the screen, providing menu categories. Clicking a menu category would pull down a menu list. The user could then click the desired menu list item. Graphics project leader Bill Atkinson received an Apple-assigned patent for this innovation. Number two, if a task or interaction was too complex to be handled by menus, then dialog boxes could be provided that utilize UI elements such as radio buttons, checkboxes, edit fields, and sliders. Just these two OS-level design concepts alone, the menu bar and the dialog box, solved the key press chaos problem and vastly simplified user interaction, thereby making applications easy to learn. That removed the aversion normal people had to using computers, thus allowing immense expansion of the computer industry's total addressable market. Here's a description of this elegant concept in an internal Apple document dated September 20th, 1980. Here, it not only delineates menu bar and dialog box functionality, but also neatly summarizes the purpose of it all. And I quote, "We want all Apple-supplied applications to have the same feel to the user, so that learning is minimized when going from application to application. Where possible, the same operation in two programs should be done in the same way and behave the same to the user. A given user action should have a consistent meaning throughout the system." End of quote. These two trailblazing user interface innovations paved the way for 1983's Lisa and 1984's Macintosh PCs, as well as the Atari ST and Commodore Amiga home computers in 1985. And they still serve as the UI foundation for the very operating systems we use today, that maybe you're using right this very minute, such as Mac OS, Linux, or Microsoft Windows. The menu and dialog box innovations developed by Steve and his team were so perfect that they have stood the test of time shockingly well, and are still the dominant computer interaction paradigm almost 45 years later. That's absolutely amazing. This brought computers not just to every business and school, but also into most homes, thus triggering exponential computer industry and semiconductor sector growth. Now that's an achievement. In fact, Steve Jobs' second greatest achievement.